especially this year. I know Bradley's always been good, but he's not, in my opinion, not been a top 10 prospect these last couple years. But this year, he's performing easily top 10 up in Washington. I really think by the end of next season, my list is probably going to shift a whole lot. We'll be able to see Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant back healthy. We'll be able to see Luka in his second year. We'll be able to see Trae Young in his second year. I think Russell Westbrook is going to start falling off here very soon. LeBron's getting closer to retirement, and at some point, Father Time is going to catch up with him. So there's a lot of names that can move on this list and be taken off this list in the near future. But for right now, these are my top 10. I've got LeBron, Giannis, Kawhi, James Harden, Anthony Davis, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Paul George are my top 10. Healthy Kevin Durant goes in at 2. Healthy Klay goes in at 10. And then Paul George would fall behind that at 11. Russell at 12. And then Luka at 13. And then Trae Young at 14. And just for fun, let's go with my 15th player to round it off. I'd probably go Bradley Beal. Especially by the way he's played this year. So those would be kind of my runnings as of right now. Let me know what you think. I had a lot of you send in lists, and there's a lot of really good lists, and there's a lot that I can't argue with. It's very close. A lot of these names are, so I don't argue. But if you don't have LeBron James number 1, I'm not reading your list. I'm sorry. Well, I know today's a much shorter episode than maybe you're used to, and some of you might be going, thank you, God. I'm so glad it's under 50 minutes. Some of you might be going, no, we want more, Jacob. And the reason for that is, hey, we're at this awkward time where not a lot of things are happening in the sports world. I need more material for next week and the following weeks, so I want to make sure that I gave you an update on the NBA today. I gave you my top 10 NBA players. I'm going to be launching an umbrella podcast that is all under the locker room, but it's going to be UFC based. I'm going to be doing a top 10 UFC fighters of all time with a fellow commentator in Steve Hines. He is a former jiu-jitsu fighter, did competition fighting for a long time. He's a huge UFC fan. So he's going to be doing that show with me, and we're going to be doing smaller segments like that to give you a ton of more content. But here at the locker room, like I said, we usually release every Tuesday. The last 2 weeks we've been a little bit off schedule. I had the opportunity to almost get a pretty big interview last week in the LeBron James Michael Jordan debate, and then this week, due to all the social media protests and out of respect for all of that and everybody being able to get their voice, I wanted to kind of delay that, let all that settle down a little bit before I pushed out my content and pushed out the Locker Room Podcast and asked you to like and subscribe. When bigger things are going on in the world, I want to take a backseat to that and make sure that everybody's got their voice and everybody can be heard. And I don't want to overflood it with, with the locker room material. So we will be back next Tuesday at the locker room. Got a very exciting episode number 7 for you. And then be on our social media. Be looking at all these different avenues. If you're a UFC fan, this podcast is going to be awesome. It's just going to be a smaller podcast under the locker room umbrella. It's going to be UFC at the locker room. And we're going to do just quick 20-minute segments, probably starting off, and then we're going to start doing some fight nights. When college football starts back up, and we start getting into that, we're going to start doing a college game day at the locker room. So the locker room is getting ready to put out a ton of content, but don't be fooled. This is all under the Locker Room Podcast. We're just going to start releasing a lot more content in a lot smaller doses, and it's going to be a lot more specific in a lot of different areas. So we're just very excited about everything going on. I'm wearing my Locker Room t-shirt that just arrived this week. We are going to have a merch link in bio soon on that link tree. So if you do follow us on the link, you'll be getting a merch link there very soon. We've got shirts in right now. We're getting hats, hoodies. We're getting a bunch of stuff out there. We're getting a LeBron James, Michael Jordan versus t-shirt made, which is really cool. So be on the lookout for all that. And remember, if you like the Locker Room, hit that like, hit that subscribe, leave us a comment, follow us on our social media, get the word out there, continue to spread it like you all have already, and just push our name out there. The more views I get, the more listens I get, the more I'm able to reach out to bigger personnel and start bringing on bigger guests. I've already been blessed with Paul Westphal, so early on in the podcast, but the more I get this out there, the more I'm able to go venture out and get a hold of some get a hold of some bigger names. We've got a very big name coming very soon as well. As soon as the NFL season kicks off, we're going to be doing some specials with him. But like I said, the Locker Room is putting out a ton of content. If you're a UFC fan, NBA, NFL, whatever it is, the Locker Room is going to have it all for you. So just make sure you stay up to date. Once again, I want to thank you all so much for joining me here at the Locker Room, episode number 6. Episode 7 will be out next week. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, follow, stay up to date on everything we're doing. If you'd like some merch, I am taking a few early orders. Just hit me on the DMs, hit me on an email, hit me on the phone. There's a way to get a hold of me on my Linktree. But thank you all so much for joining me. And until next time, I'm Jacob Courtright, and this is The Locker Room.